Testing, testing. Everything sound good for you? All right. Excellent. How's everybody doing today? Well, none of you owe me your time. None of you are la 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 la. I don't. Oh,
it's either,
I don't. Okay.
It's either that or the mic, so
Oh, we can turn that off then.
that's off.
All right, we good now? Testing, testing. We good? All right, excellent. So none of you owe me your time. None of you are morally obligated to be here. And so I appreciate the fact that you chose to come tonight, and I express my gratitude for that. So I want to talk a little bit about money mindset, because after I speak, there's going to be a panel where you're going to learn a lot of the nuts and bolts about financial literacy, how to create wealth. But one of my fundamental convictions in life is that there is no such thing as an opportunity that is so awesome that it can't be overlooked or destroyed with a self-defeating mindset. The right mindset is necessary in order to make an opportunity count. And if you have a self-defeating mindset, if you bought into a lot of fallacies and myths about how money works, how creativity works, people can hand you the opportunity right there and you'll overlook it. One example of this is there was a businessman who had an apprentice, and he said, I'm going to show you just how difficult it is for people to let good things happen to him. And he held up a $100 bill. And he says, you and I are going to walk around for a couple of blocks, and we're going to try our best to give this $100 bill away. My prediction is no one is going to accept it. His apprentice says, oh, no way, man. If you're just giving away money like that, everybody's going to accept it. So they begin to walk, and the businessman walks up to a lady, and he says, excuse me, ma'am, no strings attached. I'd just like to give you this $100 bill. Before he could finish the sentence, one second. Want me to just shut this off? And okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good now? Testing, testing. All right. Okay, so before he can get the sentence out of his mouth, the woman, assuming that it's going to be some kind of scam or whatever, she says, no thanks, no thanks. And she keeps going. And he walks up to a guy. He says, hey, look, I got a $100 bill, no strings attached. I just want to give it to you. He goes, sounds too fishy to me, no thanks. Person after person after person rejected the $100 bill. And the businessman turned to his apprentice and he says, why do you think that is? And he says, I don't know, man. Like, you were really trying to give him money. He says, it's really very simple. No one wakes up in the morning with a belief that money is the type of thing that someone else wants to give them. And that belief makes it impossible for them to accept an experience where I'm trying to give them money. If your beliefs are incompatible with the opportunity will always appear to be invisible. Or even worse, you might see yourself as being someone who dodged a bullet, even though the opportunity to create life-changing wealth was right in front of your eyes. There's a story of a fictional story of a superhero. He had the powers of bilocation. He could read people's minds. He could manipulate the weather, do all sorts of things, but he was homeless because he didn't have any money. He hadn't figured out a way to bring together those supernatural abilities to come up with simple cash. And he resorted to writing down advertisements, graffiti on the walls, bathroom walls, going into public restrooms. He was so desperate. He just really wanted somebody that he could help so that he could make some money. And one day, this kid who's being bullied sees the name of a superhero who's putting out ads that he can help them. And so he calls the superhero, and the superhero shows up and he says, tell me, what's your problem? And the little kid says, hey, look, every time I go to school, these bullies, they're always making fun of me. They're always teasing me. Can you help me out? And the superhero says, yeah, but it's going to cost you something. It's going to cost you $5. You got $5? The kid says, yeah, and he gives him $5. And he says, all right. He says, let me show you something. And then he pulls back the veil on the physical world. And he says, look at all of these monsters. These monsters are projections of your thoughts. I'm going to destroy these monsters, and by destroying them, I will destroy all the negative energy in your life, and no one else is going to bully you. And the kid says, really? He says, yeah, check this out. By the power of the water and the wind within thee, unbind her. And he dispels all the monsters, and now it's quiet. And he says, go back to the classroom and see what happens. And the little boy goes back to the classroom. Nobody teases him. He sits down. Nobody says anything to him. And at one point, he gets up and he goes to one of the bullies and he says, hey, you're not gonna tease me today? And the bully says, I don't even know who you are. I've never seen you before. And he says, have any of you seen me before? And they go, oh, no, what's your name? Are you new here? And then he runs out of the classroom crying. He goes up to the superhero and he says, hey, nobody even remembers me. And the superhero says, that's right, I solved your problem. You see what I did? I made all of the people who picked on you forget who you even are, and so problem solved. And the little kid began to cry and he says, no, I don't want people to forget who I am. Like, you've really made my life so much worse. The superhero gets angry and he says, you ungrateful little punk. You can't appreciate everything that I've done for you. You know what? Take your money back. I'm done with you. And he goes off, he lays down on the park bench to take a nap, and he says to himself, I just can't understand why it's so hard to make money. And I believe that most of us are like that superhero. We have unique powers, unique abilities, and when other people describe them to us, it sounds quite impressive. But for whatever reason, we struggle to bring those abilities together in a way that can create value for people and bring wealth into our lives. And I believe that's true because there are some powerful myths that dominate our culture, that affect the way we think about wealth, and that hold us back from realizing our potential. And I could go on about these things for several days, but I just want to underscore two very powerful religious myths about the nature of money and kind of turn the tables on how we think about these things. The first is the often misquoted Bible passage that money is the root of all evil. We all know that's not what the scriptures say. We all know that the verse is, the love of money is the root of all evil. And I'm thankful that many people have pointed this out and said, no, the Bible doesn't say money is the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of all evil, or the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. But even then, when you push back on that a little bit, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, because there's a lot of evil that happens in this world that doesn't seem to be connected at all to people trying to acquire money. Two guys get into an argument because they're drunk, they're at the bar. One guy loses his cool, punches the other guy in the face unprovoked. That's an evil thing. What does it have to do with getting money? Netflix just released a docuseries on the serial killer, Jeffrey Dahmer. I won't even go into the gruesome details about all the atrocities committed by this man, but I can tell you this, none of it was driven by the desire to acquire money. So how do we make sense of this idea that the love of money is the root of all evil, or that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil? Here's how we make sense of it. The first thing we have to understand is that when the scriptures talk about money, it's not talking about the US dollar. It's not talking about the English pound. It's not talking about the Japanese yen, because these are things that were created long after the scriptures were written. It's talking about a more fundamental idea. When it talks about money here, it's talking about things that have temporal value, the things that you can taste, that you can touch, that you can feel, that you can see, the things that are useful as an object of trade, or the things that can be acquired. And so what the scriptures really means when it says the love of money is the root of all evil is that all evil can be traced back to one thing, the prioritization of what is seen over what is unseen. When you think about it in those terms, there is no act of evil that cannot be easily explained by that. Every wrong thing that we do is the result of us prioritizing something we can see over the long-term consequences of our actions. Every act of theft, every act of exploitation, every act of deceit, every act of assault, it is always the result of someone putting immediate gratification or personal gain over the long-term ripple effects of the choices they make. So it's not about money being this bad thing that we have to go out of our ways to avoid. It's more about you miss the point of life whenever you prioritize the things that you can see over the things that you cannot see. Everything goes wrong. In fact, even when it comes to making money, the worst thing that you can do is to prioritize what you see over what is unseen. Because if you do that, you won't even understand what money is itself. So let's talk about what is money. When you think back in history, you go as far back as human civilization could go, before the pound existed, before there were debates about cryptocurrency, before anybody cared about Bitcoin and Ethereum, before there was the yen, before there were dollars, before there was a central banking system like we have right now. All you had were human beings and their material possessions and their skills. And when people wanted things, they looked at what they had and they say, well, do I have any of that? And if the answer was no, they looked around and they said, well, do I know anyone who has that? And if the answer was yes, they said, okay, do I have anything of value that I could give to that person that would incentivize them to give me the thing that I want? So maybe someone has oranges and I need oranges. And maybe I have apples and I can go to that person and I can say, hey, can I give you 2 apples for 2 oranges? And if they say yes, I have what I need. If they say no, I got to get a little bit creative. I got to say, okay, I don't have something that you need, but you still have something that I need. Well, what do you want? You don't like apples. What do you want? And that person may say, well, I like bananas. Oh, okay. Well, hold up. I don't have any bananas, but I'll be right back. And so now I go find somebody who has bananas, who might want apples. I trade my apples for the bananas. I get the bananas. Then I go back to this person. I give them the bananas and they give me the oranges. That is how human civilization worked for centuries. We simply exchanged value. And whenever we wanted something, we looked at what we had to offer and we tried to figure out a way to incentivize other people to exchange value with us. So where did money come from? Well, when you exchange value in this way by saying, I'll give you this for that, things get real complicated real fast. Imagine going into a grocery store and in order to put a price tag on things, you have to have a list that says, here are all the things I'm willing to give you this for. So like if I wanted to buy a gallon of milk, you'd have to have maybe like 30 sheets of paper next to it that says, I will give you this gallon of milk in exchange for a pair of gym shoes, helping my kid with his math homework, 2 apples, a carton of oranges, and the list would get so long and so complicated. And so we really needed a way to simplify value exchange by saying, let's find something that we can use as a symbol to represent what's going on here. And so we come up with this thing called money. And we begin to use things like precious metals. We begin to use salt. We begin to use gold. And these have some very valuable properties, right? They're portable. You can carry it around. It lasts a long time. It's divisible. And we begin to say things like, all right, so we'll use gold to represent value. But this gold is really just kind of like a symbol, right? We'll use gold to represent value. And then over time, we say, well, instead of using gold, let's use these paper certificates, because the paper certificates will represent a certain amount of gold that you own, and so on. And now we live in this world where when we think money, we think of paper certificates or we think of coins. And that's what money is to us. But underneath the surface, money is a symbolic representation of creative power. When you need something, what you need in order to get it is creative power. And when you understand money that way, you see through this myth that it takes money to make money. One of the main things that hold people back from creating wealth is the idea, well, in order to get money, I gotta already have it. And that's never been true. Now, I don't mean to overlook the fact that money does indeed bring an advantage, right? If you have money, there are options that you can have that you wouldn't otherwise have. But there's a reason why in the Bible. The man who was the wisest man to have ever lived in the Old Testament, his name is Solomon. He makes a very powerful statement about money. He says, wisdom is a defense or an advantage, just as money is a defense. But the advantage of wisdom is that it gives life to those who possess it. Meaning that, yeah, money provides you with all these advantages, but there's something more valuable than that, and it's called wisdom, because it gives you everything that money can get you, but it also gives you this additional thing. It gives you a quality of life that money itself can't buy. And if you chase after that thing, the money will follow. If you prioritize that thing, which is not seen, the money game becomes easier because it's not about the money. The money is a symbol, And the symbol represents something that we all have, creative power. It's like this story in the Bible where people were really sick. They were infected with this plague, right? And God tells Moses, he goes, I want you to take this serpent and you're going to hang this serpent on a pole. And you're going to have the people, I know it's a weird story, right? You're going to have people look at this serpent. And when they look at it, they're going to be healed. And so it's this crazy idea, but people do it and they become healed of the diseases and all of these miracles begin to happen. And so the people begin to worship the symbol. And once they begin to worship the symbol, things go bad. And God tells Moses to tear it down because the people have made the grave mistake of equating the symbol with the thing. Whenever we lose in life, whenever things go wrong in life, whenever we struggle in life, it's because we mistake the symbol for what the symbol represents. Money is not the thing. It's not even the thing that any of us want. We say we want money, we think we want money, but as soon as we get it, we prove that that's false by trying to give it away as fast as possible. Why do we try to give it away as fast as possible? Because we know that money is not wealth. Wealth is the thing that we want to give money away for. If someone gave you $1 million right now and says, you can't do anything with it, you just have to put it under your bed, that's it. You can't do anything with it. No one would be happy with $1 million. The only thing that makes money valuable is that you have the power to get rid of it. You can get rid of it in exchange for something else that you want. Money is the symbol of the creative power to obtain the things that you want. And wherever people have moved from poverty to wealth, it's because they never mistook the symbol for the thing. They chose to respect their creative power. Now, when you understand money that way, it begins to make sense as to why Jesus would say something like, it's better to give than to receive. What does that mean? Well, what kind of mindset do you have to be in order to receive? In order to receive, you have to see yourself as someone who needs something, as someone who's dependent upon other people. But it's absolutely impossible to give unless you see yourself as someone who has something to offer. But if you got no money and I say to you, hey, give that guy $5, you're going to tell me, I got nothing to give. You can't give as long as you see yourself as someone who has nothing to give. The only way to be a giver is to adopt a perspective of self that says, I always have something to offer. It is better to be the kind of person who sees themselves as always having something to offer than to be the kind of person who's always trying to get people to give you things. Because if you're the kind of person who's always trying to get people to give you things, always trying to get people to do stuff for you, it shows a lack of respect for your own creative power, a lack of respect for the potential that you have to create wealth even in the absence of money. Because it's not about the dollars, it's not about the cents, those are just symbols. It's about your creative potential. It's about your ability to solve problems for others, to add value to their lives, and that is what wealth is. Wealth is a reward for your ability to create value for other people. So a story, there was an Oklahoma grocer, I want to say in like the 50s, and his name was Sylvan Goldman. And he had this local grocery store, and he would see his customers come in. And when they come in, they would just spend a few minutes in the store. They grab a few items, and then they leave. And he thought to himself, okay, if people are only spending a few minutes in my store, and they're only buying a few items, I'm not going to stay in business very long. So I got to figure out why they're leaving so quickly. I want to pause here and ask you if you have any guesses. Why were the people leaving the store so quickly? Any guesses? The store didn't have anything that they wanted. I think that's a good guess. Yeah. Say it again. It was efficient. Maybe they got everything they needed really quickly. That's a good guess.
The storekeeper wasn't offering anything special compared to other places.
Okay, so maybe the competitors were giving better options. Those are all good guesses. Yeah. Bad customer service. That's another good one. Yeah. The store was too expensive. Okay. Any more? By the way, whether your answers are right or wrong, this kind of exercise is essential to entrepreneurial thinking. Sometimes because we might grow up in an environment where we're penalized or chastised or mocked for guessing the wrong answer, we kind of close up and we refuse to ever make a suggestion or a proposal because we don't want to say anything that's wrong. But all of the great ideas in life are the result of someone initiating a process of brainstorming by being willing to propose an imperfect idea. In fact, if you want to get people to do something, the best way to do it is to give them an imperfect idea. Then they'll get really angry and fix it and turn it into something great. Do this all the time. Nobody knows what to do. Oh, let's do this. Terrible idea. But then somebody gets angry at me like, no, that's terrible. We need to do that because it needs to be this way. And then another person chimes in and we need to add this. And by the time we're done with that process, we got a fantastic idea. And it all started with someone having the courage to say, hey, here's a pretty mediocre, unimpressive idea on the table. Somebody get mad at that and make it better. That's how you get good ideas, by being willing to experiment. So here's the answer. Here's what happened. It turns out that people's hands were getting too heavy. They'd have 4 or 5 objects and they couldn't carry any more things. And so they just left. And so he said, well, I got to come up with some kind of solution to make it easier for people to carry things. So he comes up with this idea of a shopping cart. He says, I'm going to create these baskets that people can put their stuff in. And then I'm going to put it on wheels so people can push it around, make it more convenient. How many of you, by show of hands, think that was a good idea? I think that's a great entrepreneurial idea. Here's the best part about the story. He creates these shopping carts. You know this is a brilliant idea. I know this is a brilliant idea because when we go into a retail store today and we don't see those shopping carts available as an option, we get pretty irritated. It's a good idea. But he puts them out in front of the store. The customers walk in, they go right past the shopping carts. They don't use them. And they keep struggling and they keep leaving early. Oh, okay, I just need to bring it to their attention, right? Stands by the door, offers it to people. Would you like a shopping basket? Would you like a shopping cart? No, thanks, I'm fine. No, thanks, I'm good. But I can see you struggling. Oh, no, thanks, I'm okay. Everyone walks past the shopping carts. What's going on? Well, before I ask you what your thoughts are, the first lesson here is very important, and that is no one cares about your brilliant idea. And no matter how brilliant your ideas are, those ideas will never be sufficient to create wealth. What matters is the story that other people tell themselves about your brilliant idea. And until you learn to connect your brilliant idea with the story that other people are telling themselves, you never win. And yet, this is the most incredibly difficult thing to do in entrepreneurship. People always say, hey man, like, how do I come up with business ideas? And I always laugh and I say, oh, that's the easy part. That's easy. Like, don't you have a friend who created eBay? Don't you have a friend who created Amazon? I do. I think we all have about 10 friends who walk through a store or drive by a billboard and say, I had that idea. I had that idea. I had the idea for that movie or that TV show or for that gym shoe. Business ideas are really easy. What's really difficult to do is respond to people with wisdom when they do what human beings do. They look at your brilliant idea and they say, oh, that brilliant idea makes me afraid. That brilliant idea makes me concerned that you didn't get enough sleep. That brilliant idea makes me think that you're crazy. That brilliant idea is a threat to me. And it's not until we transform our defensiveness into curiosity that we can get to a place where we can take other people's resistance to our ideas and work with it in a way that's actually conducive to creating wealth. So my question for you, why do you think the people didn't use the shopping carts? Any guesses? Who said that? Habit. That's good, right? People need to be accustomed to something. They just need to be used to it. Sometimes people like routine. That's a pretty good one. Any? I saw a hand over here.
Yeah, like doing things that are new is hard for people. Like they didn't want to be judged because they were using these new items.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Sometimes the devil that we know offers greater security than the unknown angel, right? We know that the unknown angel offers us something good, but all that devil that we know. Any other guesses? Yeah?
They're not familiar with it, so they're not going to use it.
They're not familiar with it, so they're not going to use it. I mean, how do you use this thing, right? It's kind of like when you get a new phone, you go from knowing how to use a phone to having to learn all over again, how to text, how to download apps. Sometimes getting a new benefit requires that we navigate this learning curve, and that can be inconvenient, that can be frustrating. People like easy. Any others? Yes. They need to see it in use. That's powerful. They need to see it in use to understand the value of it. Sometimes it's not just about being told what's good or being told what's right. Sometimes we need to be able to see ourselves in the story. This is one of the reasons why stories are such a valuable teaching tool, right? Because stories are a way for people to be able to form a picture that they can put themselves inside of. I like this KRS-One old school line where he says, the poor get poor and the rich get richer. That's why you got to visualize wealth and put yourself in the picture, right? Stories allow us to put ourselves in the picture. All right, so here's what he did. He went out and started talking to his customers. And he says, hey, I see that you're struggling. I have these shopping carts. Why aren't you using them? Customer after customer after customer. Now, I just want to pause here and say, regardless of how the conversations with the customers go, he's already winning. He's already winning by virtue of responding to people's rejection of his idea with curiosity rather than defensiveness. And defensiveness is the instinct, by the way, because we all want people to believe in us, even when we haven't proven ourselves. I mean, there are fewer things in life that feel good when people just take us seriously. When you say, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna come up with my own business. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna go do that. And people say, yeah, man, I believe in you. I think you're gonna do it. I can see it in your eyes. That feels really good. The hard part about life is that most people don't give us that until we've proven ourselves, until we've given some evidence of success. And so it can feel really hurtful when people don't believe in us. It's kind of like on American Idol or all these different types of shows where a person auditions and it doesn't matter how they say it. They can just say, you know, you're not the one, you're not gonna make the show. And that person just immediately just goes, well, you know what, y'all don't believe, and they just get really mad. That's the instinct. But there's another way, you know, like, I don't know what paper this is, but let's say this is my business plan right here, right? And I hand this over to a friend and they look at this, they say, man, this is stupid. Now I can get defensive about that and I can say, well, you know what, man, you just don't believe in me. You never supported me. And that would be an understandable reaction. I wouldn't condemn it. I would treat it with empathy. But that's about as much as you're gonna get out of that reaction, you know? But what if, instead of defensiveness, we substituted it with curiosity? I share this business idea with my friend, and they say, oh man, this is stupid, okay? Let's breathe. Let's give it 5 seconds. There's no expiration date on responding to an insult. Hey, I'm curious that you think my idea is stupid. That's kind of vague. I can't really do anything with that. Is there anything in particular about my idea that you think is stupid? Yeah, it's too complicated. Okay. So if I'm able to kind of simplify it, make it more user-friendly, you think that'll be helpful? Yeah. Okay, that helps. Anything else? Anything else that's stupid about my idea? Yeah, it's just, it just takes too much time to go through all the information. Okay, that helps. All right. So if I can find a way to make it more concise, you think that would improve the idea a little bit? Yeah, okay. That's good stuff. Now, why do I want to value this? I want to value this because even though I hate this guy for what he's saying to me right now, the fact is the world ain't made of a bunch of TKs. And if he thinks this way, chances are it's going to be a lot of other people who think like him. And it doesn't matter that I'm right. I'm always right inside my own mind. But I don't want to be right. I want to be effective. I want to get results. And so that means I've got to allow this guy to become my teacher before I can solve his problem and give him what he needs. Okay. Now, when I'm curious like that, and he's giving me that information, who's winning now? I am, right? Not because I'm slam dunking on him, not because I'm owning him, not because if somebody walks by, they're gonna be like, oh, TK got this dude. No, this isn't something that's visible. I'm winning because I'm using curiosity to get the information that I need to create the results that matter most to me. This is what curiosity does. You know, sometimes when we watch these Hollywood movies, we get these romanticized stories about creativity where they make us think Every business starts with this really charming entrepreneur who has this idea, the angels sing to them, and then they take the idea to the world, and the world says, wow, that's brilliant. Why didn't I think of that? And when you actually look at history, Malcolm X says, of all our studies, history will most reward our research. When you look at history, you realize that almost never happens. That almost never happens. How many of you got here by taking a car? Or any kind of auto? Okay. All right, so cars are a good idea, right? Surely when the car was invented, people said, hey man, that's great. We can get places faster. We don't have to go by horse travel anymore. We don't have to walk around. We can get there efficiently. That's not how the world reacted. The world says that's scary, that's weird. Because in order to have cars, you need to have roads. And when the transportation infrastructure is designed around horse travel, you don't have roads for cars. And it's pretty difficult to demonstrate the superiority of a car over a horse when you have a transportation infrastructure that's designed for horses. Horses are good on grass, they're good in mud, they're good on dirt. Cars, they're kind of picky. You need well-paved roads in order for them to be good. And so you're trying to get the world to think that this is a better idea than that when the roads aren't even designed for that. In fact, in the UK, they had something called the Red Flag Act, where in order to operate a motor vehicle, they thought this was so dangerous, you need to have a professional engineer in the passenger seat with you. And then you need to have somebody going ahead of the car, waving a red flag, warning people about the giant death machine that's coming your way. That's how the world reacts to great ideas. That's how the world is going to react to your brilliant idea. Through fear, through doubt, through rejection, through questioning. And if you're defensive about it, you won't win. But if you get curious, you learn interesting things about people. So Sylvan Goldman got curious and he found out something interesting. Here's why people weren't using the shopping carts. The women didn't want to use the shopping carts because they resembled baby carriages. The older people didn't want to use the shopping carts because they resembled walking aids. The men didn't want to use the shopping carts because they thought it was effeminate. The young people didn't want to use the shopping carts because they didn't think it was stylish. And here is the point in the story where the average person would fail at business. Because you know what most people would do? If they heard people's reasons for not using a good idea being that, they would get mad at how superficial people were. They would get mad at how stupid people are. And you can never win if you spend most of your time being angry about how stupid you think other people are. An entrepreneur is someone who doesn't get mad at other people for being stupid. An entrepreneur looks at the world, and when people seem to be stupid, the entrepreneur says, oh, okay, I guess that's why I'm here. Because it's obvious to me and it's not obvious to them. And if I adopt a servant mindset, a creator mindset, that doesn't mean this person's an idiot. It means I am someone who has what they need in the same way that somebody else is someone who has what I need. And so instead of mocking them, getting angry at them for having such bad reasons, he says, okay, I understand. I understand. That's your story. That's why you don't want to use my shopping carts. And he goes back and then he begins to hire models from every demographic who push the shopping carts, looking like the children, the women, the older people. And then people saw others who looked like themselves using the shopping cart and they go, oh, okay, I guess this is something that I can use too. And then the idea takes off millions and millions of dollars later. But guess what? The idea was brilliant the moment that he had it, but it didn't succeed because it was brilliant. It succeeded because he was willing to make himself a student of people. Business ideas are easy. Being a student of people is the hardest thing to do. Because when you encounter someone and you say, how's it going? And people start complaining, you don't want to hear it. It's a drag, right? But the entrepreneur is the one that says, if I can understand your complaint, if I can understand what grieves you, and I can figure out how to take the things that are easy for me to help alleviate your pain and your suffering, I can solve a problem for you, for other people, and then I can create wealth for me and my family. That is how you create generational wealth. People are annoying, people are tiring, people are frustrating, people are shallow, people are superficial. That means you, me, and everybody in between. And the only way we create wealth is by saying, I will exercise the courage necessary to love people even when they are not lovable by making myself a student of their pain, a student of their problems, and then I will figure out how to use my gifts. whether that's the ability to make music, the ability to make people laugh, the ability to make them see it a different way, the ability to explain things, the ability to make them look good. And I will make myself a servant of humanity. And that's how you get generational wealth. I know I'm out of time. You said I can get time for Q&A though, right?
What do you think, Joe?
We're gonna, you can take a couple. We're gonna do also Q&A for the panel discussion.
Okay.
But either way, does anyone have a?
Can I do a couple?
Yeah, do a couple
Cool.
now,
Yeah.
And then we'll do the Q&A. Is there any questions that anyone will ask TK?
Be quick, because you know what's gonna happen? So when I'm getting ready to leave, somebody gonna be like, yo, TK, man, I got a question for you. So just do it now. Just do it now. So if you have the question, somebody else does.
So what's one idea that you thought that was like stupid, but actually ended up being something really good, and you ended up using or implementing after it got good?
Like in terms of like business idea for me, what's something that
Yeah, sure.
other people reacted to? So I kind of struggled with it in the opposite way, like with guilt. One of my first jobs was as a corporate trainer, and I would go in and I would teach corporate finance to a lot of senior accountants and stuff like that. And sometimes they would hire me to teach these topics that I had no knowledge of. But what I would do is I would go to the library or go to Barnes & Noble and I would get like 3 or 4 books on it. And I would have like a week before I had to teach. And then I would just like go read for like 6 hours a day, right? And just learn a topic. And then I would go teach it. The problem was I would spend maybe like $60, $80 on books. And the people that were there was spending like $400 or $500 a pop, right? To be there. And I spent like, a couple hundred on books. And I was talking to my father about this and I says, man, I feel like I'm ripping people off. I feel like there's something that's not fair about this. I'm spending just a couple $100s on books, and then they're spending like $400 a piece just for something that I learned over the course of a week. And he says, no, man. He says, there's something that you're missing. He goes, you're a nerd. Nobody wants to go spend $100 on books and then spend their whole weekend reading for 6, 7 hours a day. He goes, I know I wouldn't. I would rather pay you the money to go be the nerd that you enjoy being so that you can read the books and come back and explain it to me, and then I can take the ideas and go build something. And a light bulb went on, right? And I realized like, oh, this weird thing about me is actually an advantage that can be my way of creating wealth. And we all have that, but we have to kind of get over the guilt, or we have to get over the idea that that's not valuable. A lot of the reasons why we don't fit in are actually symbols for the things that we can contribute to humanity. I would worry less about fitting in or not being weird, and I would focus on trying to take my unique form of being weird to add something valuable to other people. One last one. Yes.
You talked a lot about the idea phase, but what about the implementing phase?
The idea of faith, but what about the implementing phase? Yeah, I think about that verse in the Bible that says, faith without works is dead, right? Well, the implementing phase is the implication of what I said earlier, which is no one cares about your brilliant idea, right? It's not the ability to be creative or to come up with genius insights. It's about what you do with them, and in particular, what you do with those ideas for people. And so I would even challenge everyone to think about execution in a way that's beyond the academic stuff. It's not about writing out a business plan. It's not about writing out an executive summary. It's not about filing for an LLC. A lot of those things can be an easy way to hide because it makes you feel like you're being productive. But at the end of the day, you're not creating wealth unless you're using gifts, talents, abilities, and products to solve problems for real human beings. And if you can figure out how to do that, even if it's only for a handful of people, you will have other people come into your life who will beg you to be the guy to write out the executive summary, who will beg you to be the person who does your accounting, who will beg you to be the person to write out the business plan. It's not about all of that stuff. It's about the people. Who am I solving problems for? How am I solving problems for them? Am I willing to act in less than ideal conditions? Even when I only have about 2 or 3 customers, and I'm willing to serve them as if I had 1 million. Because the way you get to a lot of customers is by just taking the handful of people that are excited about you and treating them as if they're the only people in the universe, and they're gonna go get excited and tell everybody else about your product, your service, or whatever it is you do. I am going to remain here for the panel. I'm gonna hang back after the panel. And so if anybody wants to, when this is over, just come and chat with me, ask me any other questions. I'll be happy to to do that. So thank you all for listening, and I hope you found value in this.